The knock came at 7:13 a.m. Daniel Thorne set down his coffee mug, glanced at his daughter Lily, who was still half asleep over her cereal, and walked to the front door of their modest house on Maple Street. He expected a delivery driver, or maybe old Mrs. Callahan from next door with another package delivered wrong. He did not expect a woman in a $3,000 charcoal coat, designer sunglasses pushed into jet black hair, and a single leather suitcase standing on his weathered porch. Behind her, a black sedan idled at the curb, the kind of car that cost more than his entire house. The autumn morning was crisp, sunlight catching the faint dew on the porch railing he'd been meaning to repaint for 2 years. The woman removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were tired, but her posture belonged in a boardroom, not a small Pennsylvania town where the biggest news of the week was the high school football score. "Hope there's room," she said. Daniel's hand froze on the doorframe. His mind replayed the words he'd spoken just yesterday morning, tossed out with a grin over pancakes. "Well, you could always move in with us." It was a joke, the kind of thing you say to a stranger who's had a rough night and needs a little lightness before they disappear from your life forever. He never imagined she'd actually come back, and he definitely never imagined she was the CEO of a company worth $9 billion. If you love stories where hidden identities collide with ordinary kindness, hit that like button and subscribe. Tell us in the comments from which part of the country you're watching today. Now, let's rewind to where it all began. 27 hours earlier, the rain was coming down in sheets along Route 30. Daniel had just finished a 14-hour shift at Millbrook Auto and Repair, a garage that smelled permanently of diesel and burnt coffee. His hands were still stained with grease when he climbed into his battered blue 2008 Ford F-150, the one with 237,000 miles and a passenger window that stuck halfway down. Lily was at her sister's house for the night, which meant he could take the back roads home without rushing. The radio played old country. The wipers squeaked. Life was quiet, predictable, and held together by the thinnest of threads. Then he saw the car. A sleek black Audi e-tron GT, price tag north of $120 grand, pulled onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly through the downpour. Steam rose from beneath the hood. No other vehicles were around. The nearest town was 6 miles behind him. Most people would have driven past. Daniel pulled over. He grabbed his emergency flashlight, tugged his flannel jacket tighter, and stepped into the rain. The cold soaked through his boots instantly. As he approached the driver's side, he could see a woman inside, her hands resting motionless on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead as if she hadn't noticed him. He tapped gently on the glass. She startled, then rolled the window down a few inches. Her face was composed, but something behind her eyes looked hollow, like a building with all the lights on and nobody home. "Car trouble?" he asked. She gave a faint, tired smile. "Seems the universe has a sense of humor tonight. Mind if I take a look?" She studied him for a long moment. He didn't rush her. He just stood in the rain, flashlight aimed at the ground, waiting. "I'd appreciate that," she said finally. Daniel popped the hood. The engine compartment was immaculate, everything arranged in precise German engineering, but a quick diagnostic check with his portable scanner told the story. "Alternator shot. These high-performance electrics don't like long drives in wet weather. It's not charging the battery." She stepped out of the car, pulling her coat tight. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but the cold remained. "How long to fix it?" "Parts not something I carry in the truck. Nearest dealership is in Pittsburgh. You're looking at tomorrow at best." She exhaled slowly, the sound of someone who'd spent years learning not to show frustration. "There's a motel about 12 miles from here," Daniel offered. "It's not fancy, but it's dry." 12 miles, she repeated, "in this weather." "I can give you a ride." She glanced at his truck, rust on the wheel wells, a faded Thorne's garage sticker on the bumper, and then back at him. No judgment crossed her face, just quiet calculation. "I don't want to impose," she said. "You wouldn't be. Besides, my daughter Lily would never forgive me if I left someone stranded. She's 8 and already has stronger opinions than most adults." That earned a small laugh, the first real one he'd later realize. "I'm Daniel Thorne," he said, extending a hand. She hesitated for half a second. Aria, just Aria. No last name. He didn't press. In his experience, people running from something always carried half an introduction. They secured her car, grabbed a small overnight bag from the trunk, and climbed into the truck. The heater wheezed to life. The radio crackled. As they pulled onto the empty highway, Aria stared out the window at the dark fields blurring past. "You're not from around here," Daniel said. "What gave it away, the car or the complete lack of practical clothing?" He grinned. "A little bit of both." They drove in comfortable silence for a while. The rain faded entirely. Through the clouds, a sliver of moon appeared, casting pale light across the countryside. "What brings you through Millbrook?" "I needed to get away from some things," she said quietly. "Bad decisions, worse people." "Sounds familiar." She looked at him. "You too?" "My wife passed 3 years ago, pancreatic cancer, 6 weeks from diagnosis to the end." He said it without self-pity, just a statement of fact. "After that, I made some choices, left a good job in the city, moved out here so Lily could grow up with grass and trees and a school where everybody knows her name." Aria was silent for a moment. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We're doing okay, most days." The word okay hung in the air. For Daniel, it was the highest praise he could give. For Aria, it was a concept she hadn't felt in years. They reached the house just before 9. The porch light was on, Lily's doing before she left, a habit Daniel never asked for but always appreciated. Inside, the house smelt faintly of cinnamon from a candle Lily had insisted on buying at the school fair. The furniture was worn but clean. Framed photos lined the hallway. Lily's first day of kindergarten, a fishing trip, the two of them building a snowman in the front yard. Aria paused at the pictures. "She looks like you." "Poor kid," Daniel said. "Coffee? I was about to make a pot." "At this hour?" "I'm a single dad. Caffeine is a food group." She smiled again, a real one, smaller but genuine, and nodded. He busied himself in the kitchen, while she stood near the doorway, uncertain, like someone who'd forgotten how to be a guest. The coffee maker gurgled. He pulled down 2 mismatched mugs. "You can sit, you know." "I'm not used to sitting. I'm not used to any of this, actually." "What, kitchens?" "Quiet, being in a place where no one wants anything from me." Daniel poured the coffee and slid a mug across the table. "Well, tonight the only thing I want is to make sure you don't freeze on the side of the road. Low bar, but I aim to clear it." She wrapped her hands around the mug and looked into the dark liquid as if it might hold answers. "You don't know anything about me. For all you know, I could be a criminal." "Are you a criminal?" "No." "Then we're good." She shook her head slowly. "People don't do this. They don't just help. Maybe you've been around the wrong people." The words landed harder than either of them expected. Aria's jaw tightened. For a moment, the mask she'd been wearing, the calm, polished exterior, cracked just enough to reveal exhaustion underneath, raw and bone-deep. "I think I've been the wrong person," she whispered. Daniel didn't pry. He sat down across from her and drank his coffee. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere in the attic, a mouse scratched softly. "There's a guest room upstairs. Sheets are clean. Lily decorated it, so fair warning, there's an alarming number of unicorn stickers." Aria laughed again, and this time it seemed to catch her off guard, like a muscle she hadn't exercised in years. "I can't pay you for this." "Didn't ask." "Why are you being so kind?" Daniel considered the question. "Because someone was kind to me once, when I didn't deserve it, and because you looked about as lost as I felt 3 years ago." She had no response to that. They finished their coffee. He showed her to the guest room, walls painted lavender, a quilt his mother had made, and indeed 47 unicorn stickers in various sizes. Aria touched one with her fingertip and didn't seem to mind at all. The next morning arrived with sunlight pouring through every window. Daniel was already at the stove flipping pancakes when Aria came downstairs, dressed in the same clothes but looking slightly more rested. "Morning," he said. "Hope you're hungry. Lily's coming back in an hour and she'll judge my pancake to flip ratio." "Is that a real thing?" "In this house, absolutely."
Aria hovered by the counter. "Daniel, I can't thank you enough. I should call a tow service. Get out of your hair." "Tow truck won't get your alternator fixed any faster. I already called my guy at the garage. He can have the part by noon and install it by 3. She blinked. "You did that already?" "I get up early." Something in her expression shifted. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude so deep it didn't have words. "What do I owe you?" "Breakfast company," he said, sliding a plate toward her. "And if Lily asks, you have to tell her my pancakes are better than her Aunt Jen's." Aria sat. The pancakes were golden, the syrup real maple from a farm 20 miles east. For a few minutes they ate without talking. Then the front door burst open. "Dad, I'm back!" Lily charged into the kitchen wearing a purple backpack and one pink sneaker. "Aunt Jen said I could have chocolate for breakfast, but I said no because you make better pancakes, and whoa, who are you?" Aria froze, fork halfway to her mouth. "This is Aria," Daniel said calmly. "Her car broke down last night. She stayed in the guest room." "The one with the unicorns?" "The very same." Lily studied Aria with the intensity only an 8-year-old could summon. "Do you like pancakes?" "I do," Aria said carefully. "Good. Dad makes the best, but sometimes he burns the bacon." One time, Daniel protested. 3 times, Lily corrected. She reached for the syrup without missing a beat. "Where's your car now? Is it a cool car?" "Dad fixes cars." "It's a black car," Aria offered. "Boring color. You should get a red one. Red cars go faster. That's science." Aria looked at Daniel, who shrugged. She's been reading a lot of science books lately.
Lily proceeded to dominate the conversation for the next 15 minutes, talking about her science fair project, her teacher, Mrs. Hendricks, who smelled like peppermint, and a stray cat that kept visiting their porch. Aria listened with an expression Daniel couldn't quite read, part amusement, part longing. When breakfast ended and Lily ran upstairs to change, Aria helped clear the plates. They stood side by side at the sink, washing and drying. "Your daughter is wonderful," Aria said. "She's a force of nature. I just try to keep up." "You're doing more than keeping up. You've built something here, a home, a real one." Daniel shrugged. "We get by. Some days are harder than others. But we've got a roof, food, and each other. That's more than a lot of people have." Aria set a dried plate on the counter. "When my company was young, I used to tell myself that once we hit certain milestones, I'd feel this sense of arrival, like I'd finally made it. We hit the first milestone, then the next, and I never felt it." Daniel didn't ask what company. He just said, "Maybe the arrival isn't a place you reach. Maybe it's who you're standing next to when you stop moving." Aria stared at him. "That's either very wise or the coffee was too strong," he added. She laughed softly. "No, it's the first thing anyone said to me in years that actually made sense." The morning wore on. Daniel called his garage to confirm the alternator delivery. Aria made a few quiet phone calls of her own, stepping onto the porch for privacy. When she returned, her expression was guarded again. "The part arrived early. They're installing it now. Your car should be ready by 2. She nodded slowly. "Then I'll be on my way." Lily came downstairs wearing a tutu over her jeans for reasons she declined to explain. She handed Aria a crayon drawing, 3 stick figures in front of a house. "That's me, Dad, and you. You can keep it." Aria took the paper like it was made of glass. "Thank you, Lily." "You look sad," Lily said, matter-of-factly. "So I put you in our picture. Now you're not alone." The kitchen went very still. Daniel opened his mouth to apologize for his daughter's bluntness, but Aria shook her head. "She's right," Aria said quietly. "I was lonely, and you've been both kinder to me than people I've known for a decade." She looked at the drawing, at the 3 figures standing together under a crayon sun, and something shifted behind her eyes, a decision taking shape in real time. Daniel, not knowing what else to say, offered a lopsided grin. "Well, you could always move in with us." It was a joke, clearly a joke. Lily giggled. Daniel expected Aria to smile, shake her head, and leave with a pleasant goodbye. Instead, she held his gaze for a long moment. "That's a dangerous offer to make to a stranger." "Good thing you're not a criminal." "You keep saying that." "Hasn't failed me yet." At 2 o'clock, a tow truck delivered the repaired Audi.
Aria stood in the driveway, car keys in hand, trunk in the suitcase. Lily hugged her fiercely. Daniel offered a handshake. Aria bypassed the hand and gave him a brief, sincere hug instead. "Thank you for everything." "Safe travels," he said. She climbed into the car, the engine purred to life, and she drove away without looking back. Daniel stood on the porch, watching the black Audi disappear down the gravel road. He felt a strange pang of loss, irrational, he told himself. She was a stranger, a grateful one, but still a stranger. Lily tugged his sleeve. "She'll come back." "What makes you say that?" "I drew her in the picture. She has to." He smiled and ruffled her hair. "Come on, let's get started on that science project." They went inside. The house felt a little emptier than before, but life returned to its normal rhythm. Daniel cooked dinner, helped with homework, tucked Lily into bed.
By 10 o'clock, he was sitting on the couch, the TV murmuring in the background, when he noticed the drawing still on the counter. 3 figures: a dad, a daughter, and a woman with dark hair. He went to sleep not knowing that in less than 24 hours, the woman in the drawing would be standing on his doorstep. The next morning was ordinary in every way. Daniel woke at 5, made coffee, packed Lily's lunch, turkey sandwich, apple slices, a note that said, "You're a rock star," and got her dressed and out the door to school by 7. He was back home by 7:10, ready to grab his tools and head to the garage. Then the knock came, at 7:13 a.m., and there she was, Aria, in the same charcoal coat, same designer sunglasses, same leather suitcase. But something was different. Her posture was looser. The tension that had coiled through her shoulders like steel cable was gone. "Hope there is room," she said. Daniel stared. "You drove back?" "I did. It's been less than a day." "I know." "I was joking." A faint, almost mischievous smile crossed her lips. "Most jokes don't come with a guest room and 47 unicorn stickers." He laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "You're serious?" She set the suitcase down and looked him directly in the eye. "I've spent 12 years building something that looks powerful from the outside. I have a penthouse with a view that could make you weep. I have a company worth more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and I have never, not once, felt the way I felt sitting at your kitchen table with a burnt pancake and a little girl who drew me into her family without asking permission." Daniel swallowed. "Aria, I don't even know your last name." "It's Voss." The name landed like a thunderclap. Voss Tech was everywhere. Headlines, stock tickers, magazine covers. The company that revolutionized robotics and artificial intelligence. The CEO who'd been called the most powerful woman in tech. And she was standing on his porch with a suitcase. "Voss," he repeated slowly. "As in Voss Tech?" "Yes." "The company that just had that big board shakeup? The one the news won't stop talking about?" "Yes." Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "So when you said you needed to get away from bad decisions and worse people, I meant my board of directors. They voted to place me on indefinite leave while they review what they called leadership concerns." She said the words with quiet contempt. "Leadership concerns. I built that company from a dorm room and a second-hand laptop. I sacrificed everything for it, and they want to push me out because I refuse to cut corners on safety protocols." He didn't know what to say. The scale of it, the billions, the boardrooms, the power struggles, felt impossibly distant from his world of oil changes and unicorn stickers. "Why here?" he asked. "Why us?" "Because you didn't know who I was. You offered me coffee and pancakes and a bed with unicorn stickers. You made a joke about moving in, and for the first time in years, I actually wanted to say yes. So I did." Daniel looked at her, at this woman who could buy his entire town and not notice the dent in her bank account, and saw not a CEO, but someone profoundly, achingly tired. "Kindness doesn't check bank accounts," he said quietly. "It just opens the door." Aria's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She simply nodded. So, is the door still open? Behind him, the house stood quiet. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows. Somewhere inside, Lily's crayon drawing still sat on the counter. Daniel stepped aside. "Come on in," he said. "I'll make coffee." Aria carried her suitcase inside and set it by the stairs. The gesture was deliberate, a quiet declaration that she was here, really here, not just passing through.
For the next 3 days, they fell into an unexpected rhythm. Aria helped make breakfast. She walked Lily to the bus stop. She insisted on washing dishes, even though Daniel told her repeatedly she didn't have to. She accompanied him to the garage, sitting in a folding chair in the corner while he worked on engines, asking questions about carburetors and timing belts as if they were the most fascinating topics in the world. None of the other mechanics recognized her. To them, she was just a woman in jeans and a flannel, clothes Daniel had lent her, drinking terrible coffee from a styrofoam cup. "She's your cousin?" asked Pete, the garage owner. "Something like that," Daniel said. Aria smiled behind her coffee. In the evenings, they sat on the porch and talked. She told him about Vostek, the early days, the 70-hour weeks, the investors who'd bet against her and lost. She told him about the loneliness that crept in so slowly she hadn't noticed until it was everywhere. He told her about Sarah, how she'd made him laugh, how she'd been terrified of needles but braved through every treatment, how the house had felt like a tomb for the first year after she was gone. They didn't try to fix each other. They just listened. Lily, for her part, treated Aria like she'd always been there. She drew more pictures, Aria on the porch, Aria at the garage, Aria making pancakes, which, Lily noted, were almost as good as Dad's. On the third night, they were all in the living room watching an old movie. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, her head resting against Aria's arm. Daniel glanced over and saw Aria looking down at his daughter with an expression of such tenderness that it made his chest ache. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I didn't know it could feel like this," Aria whispered. "Just quiet and full at the same time. That's family. I don't think I've ever had one, not really." "You do now." She looked at him, and something passed between them, an understanding too fragile for words. Then the headlights appeared. Through the living room window, Daniel saw them first, a convoy of black SUVs turning onto the gravel road, 3 vehicles moving slowly, deliberately, their headlights cutting harsh lines through the peaceful night. Aria saw them too. Her entire body went rigid. "They found me," she said. Daniel stood. "Stay here." He walked onto the porch. The SUVs rolled to a stop in the driveway. Men and women in business attire stepped out, carrying tablets and briefcases. One older man, silver hair, expensive suit, cold eyes, approached the steps. "Marcus Holt," Daniel said flatly. "I've seen your picture in the news." "Then you know why I'm here." Marcus didn't bother with pleasantries. "Miss Voss has been absent from her corporate responsibilities for over a week. The board requires her immediate return." "She's not a hostage. She's a guest." "Mr. Thorne, with all due respect, this matter is far beyond your understanding. The company's stock has dropped 11%. Investors are panicking. An emergency shareholders meeting has been called tomorrow morning." The porch door opened behind him. Aria stepped out, barefoot, wearing one of Daniel's flannels over her jeans. She looked nothing like the CEO of Vostek. She looked like someone who'd found something worth keeping. "Marcus," she said calmly, "you drove all this way to tell me something I already know." "Aria, this charade has gone on long enough. Come back. We can still fix this." "Fix what, exactly? The company I built? The one you've been trying to dismantle for 6 months?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "The board has scheduled a vote to appoint an interim CEO. If you're not present, the vote will proceed without you. You could lose everything." Aria stepped down from the porch, her bare feet touching the cool grass. Behind her, the warm light of the house spilled across the yard. Inside, Lily was still sleeping, unaware. "Everything," Aria repeated.
You keep using that word, but I've spent more time in the past 3 days than I have in 3 years figuring out what everything actually means."
She paused. "It doesn't mean stock prices. It doesn't mean board seats. It means this." She gestured at the house, the peeling paint, the worn porch, the flower boxes Lily had insisted on planting. "This is what you're choosing?" Marcus asked, disbelief thick in his voice. "A handyman and a rundown house in the middle of nowhere?" Daniel felt a flash of anger but kept his voice level. "Careful," he said. "That's my home you're talking about." Marcus ignored him. "Aria, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable," she said. "For the first time in my adult life, I'm choosing what actually makes me happy, not what makes the board happy, not what makes investors happy. Me." The other executives shifted uncomfortably. One of them checked for tablet as if the numbers might offer some solution. Marcus's expression hardened. "If you're not at that meeting tomorrow, the vote will go through. You'll be removed, permanently." "Then let the vote go through." The words hung in the cold night air. Marcus stared at her, clearly waiting for her to take it back, to cave, to revert to the person she'd been before she'd stumbled into this small town. But Aria didn't waver. "You'll regret this," he said finally. "I doubt that." He turned, gestured sharply to the others, and climbed back into his SUV. The convoy pulled away, taillights shrinking into the darkness until there was nothing left but the sound of wind through the trees. Daniel stepped beside her. "You just walked away from a billion-dollar company." "I walked away from a cage," she corrected. "The company was never the problem. It was the people who turned it into one." He didn't know what to say, so he just stood there with her in the quiet, watching the stars overhead. After a long moment, Aria spoke again. "You know what I realized when I was standing in your kitchen that first morning? You and Lily, you treated me like a person, not a balance sheet, not a headline, a person. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Seems like a pretty basic thing to forget. When you're rich enough, people stop treating you like a person. They treat you like an opportunity." She looked at him. "You never did. Even after you knew who I was, you still made me pancakes." To be fair, the pancakes were already made. She laughed softly. "My point stands." Inside the house, Lily stirred on the couch. "Dad, is it morning?" "Not yet, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." Lily mumbled something and curled up again. Aria looked at the sleeping girl, then at Daniel. "I meant what I said. I'm choosing this, if you'll still have me." Daniel smiled, a real, full smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "I did make the offer, and I wasn't joking." "You were definitely joking." "Only a little." The night wrapped around them like a blanket. In the distance, an owl called. The house creaked gently, settling into its foundation, and for the first time in years, Aria Voss felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The shareholders' meeting took place the next morning in downtown Pittsburgh, without Aria. By noon, the news broke. Aria Voss had been removed as CEO of Voss Tech. The board appointed Marcus Holt as interim leader, citing irreconcilable differences in vision. The story dominated every financial network. Reporters camped outside her penthouse. Analysts debated what it meant for the company's future. The stock dropped another 6%. In Millbrook, Pennsylvania, none of that mattered. Aria was at the garage helping Daniel organize a shipment of parts. She'd traded her designer coat for a hoodie and work gloves. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She was laughing at something Pete had said about a customer who insisted his car only ran properly when he played polka music. Then the news vans arrived. 3 of them, followed by 2 black SUVs. Reporters spilled onto the sidewalk, cameras rolling, microphones extended. The small garage suddenly felt like a fishbowl. "Miss Voss, is it true you've permanently stepped away from Voss Tech? Do you have any comment on the board's vote? Are you living in this town now? Who is the man you're staying with?" The customers in the garage stared. Pete's jaw dropped. Aria set down the box of spark plugs and wiped her hands on a rag. Daniel moved to stand beside her. "You don't have to talk to them." "I know," she said, "but if I don't, they'll keep coming back." She walked out of the garage, into the bright autumn sunlight, and faced the cameras. Daniel followed a step behind. For a moment, no one spoke.
The reporters held their microphones like offerings. The camera lights blinked red. Then Aria Voss, former CEO of a billion-dollar company, smiled. "I understand you have questions, so let me answer the most important one. Yes, I'm leaving the company I founded. Yes, the board voted to remove me. And no, I'm not fighting it." A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. "But why?" a reporter called out. "Why walk away from everything you built?" "Because I finally realized that building a company and building a life are two different things," Aria said. "I spent 12 years chasing success. I caught it, and when I held it in my hands, I felt nothing, because while I was busy building an empire, I forgot to build a home." She glanced back at Daniel, who stood quietly by the garage door. "A few weeks ago, my car broke down on a country road in the middle of a rainstorm. Most people drove past. One person stopped. He didn't know my name, didn't know my net worth, didn't want anything from me. He just helped. And then his daughter drew me into her family picture because she said I looked lonely." Aria paused, letting the words settle. "That was the moment I understood. I wasn't just lonely, I was empty. And no amount of money was ever going to fill that space. But kindness did. Pancakes did. A little girl's drawing did." Marcus Holt appeared at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed, watching with barely concealed disdain. He'd come to see her humiliated. Instead, he saw her radiant. "So, to answer your question, I didn't walk away from everything I built. I walked toward something better, toward a life where I'm not just a name on a building, but a person who matters to someone." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, Lily's drawing, slightly crumpled, but unmistakable. 3 figures in front of a house. "This is worth more to me than any stock certificate," she said. "And if that makes me a failure in the eyes of Wall Street, so be it." The cameras captured every word. The reporters scribbled furiously. A few of them looked genuinely moved. Marcus stepped forward, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "This is a publicity stunt. She's trying to spin her failure into a feel-good story." Aria didn't flinch. "Marcus, I wish you well, truly, but I'm done letting people like you define my worth." She turned her back on him, on the cameras, the microphones, the entire spectacle, and walked back into the garage. Daniel fell into step beside her. Inside, Pete and the other mechanics were staring at her like she'd grown a second head. You're a billionaire," Pete stammered. "Was," Aria corrected. "I'm pretty sure I just quit." Pete looked at Daniel. "Your cousin, huh?" "Long story," Daniel said. Aria laughed. It was a sound of pure, unburdened relief. Outside, the news vans lingered for a while, but eventually they packed up and left. Marcus disappeared into his SUV. The story would dominate headlines for weeks, but the people in that garage had already moved on. Lily arrived after school, completely unaware of the chaos. She ran up to Aria and handed her a new drawing. "This one's better," Lily announced. "I added a cat." Aria looked at the picture. 4 figures now. Daniel, Lily, Aria, and an orange cat. "It's perfect," Aria said, and for the first time in her life, she meant it completely.
Winter came to Millbrook with a blanket of snow and a quiet that settled over the fields like a held breath. 3 months had passed since the shareholders' meeting. The story of Aria Voss walking away from a billion-dollar company to live in a small Pennsylvania town had become the kind of viral sensation people couldn't stop talking about. But to the people in Millbrook, she was no longer a headline. She was just Aria. She worked part-time at the garage now, handling the books and chatting with customers. She'd learned to change a tire and bake a casserole and build a snowman that didn't immediately collapse. She'd become a regular at the Thursday farmers market, where Mrs. Callahan saved her the best Honeycrisp apples. She'd also become something she never expected, a mother figure to an 8-year-old who decided with absolute certainty that Aria belonged. Lily took her to the school's mother-daughter tea party, introducing her to everyone as my Aria. She asked Aria to braid her hair before school. She crawled into Aria's lap during movie nights, falling asleep to the sound of her heartbeat. Daniel watched it all with a quiet, steady joy. He and Aria hadn't put a label on what they were. They hadn't needed to. It was there in the way he made coffee exactly the way she liked it. It was there in the way she read bedtime stories to Lily when he was too tired to speak. It was there in the way they sat on the porch every evening, shoulders touching, watching the stars emerge one by one. One Saturday afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from the Voss Tech Board, offering to reinstate her as CEO with full authority and a restructured board. The company had struggled under Marcus's leadership. Profits were down, morale was worse, the investors were desperate. Aria read the letter at the kitchen table, Daniel beside her, Lily coloring at her feet. "They want me back," she said. "I figured they would. They're offering everything, full control, the board restructured, the salary doubled." Daniel kept his voice steady. "How do you feel about that?" She looked at the letter, then at Lily, then at him. The afternoon sunlight poured through the window, warming the faded linoleum. "I feel like I already have everything," she said. She folded the letter and set it aside. "You're not going back?" Lily asked, looking up from her drawing. "No, sweetheart, I'm not going back." Lily grinned. "Good, you promised to help with my science project. Volcanoes, we need baking soda." "I haven't forgotten." Daniel reached across the table and took Aria's hand. No words were needed. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, gentle, transforming the world into something clean and new. The house creaked contentedly. The cat Lily had named Marmalade purred on the windowsill. And in that small house on Maple Street, a billionaire who'd given up her kingdom sat at a kitchen table surrounded by crayon drawings and burnt pancakes and the quiet, unshakable knowledge that she was finally, truly home. Sometimes the richest people are the ones with nothing left to prove, and sometimes the greatest empire isn't built with money, it's built with love, one ordinary day at a time. If this story moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories about the power of kindness. Don't forget to comment your favorite moment below.